Good evening, everybody. Oh, I hope everyone is well. Well, the whole one person that's watching right now. I'm going to give people a minute to hop on. I don't expect people to hop on. I was just saying this to a client. I don't ever expect people to hop on to live calls because I get it. I get what it's like having kids and a family. But at the very least, watch it later on because you'll always learn something from these calls. I can see 3 people are watching. Facebook has changed the interface a little bit, so do say hi. You can't see who's watching unless the person comments. So all I can see is a number of people watching. I can't see who it is until they say hi. Carla, hi. Alicia, hi. Chelsea, hi. Who else? Okay, we're going to give people another minute to hop on. I'm cooking dinner. What are you cooking, Alicia? I was just running so far behind that I only had my lunch at 3:30 today. And by the time I finished eating lunch, it was 4 because I kept getting distracted. So then I just skipped dinner. I'm like, whatever. I'm just going to skip dinner because it's just getting too late. It's getting too stressful. I have stuff to do. But I did make roast chicken thighs for my kids and made quesadillas for them with spinach wraps from Silver Hills. And chicken thighs are very high in vitamin K2 for those of you that didn't know. Okay, how is the sound? Carla, Chelsea, how is the sound? Chicken curry with lots of veggies. Oh, you'll have to send me a recipe. I've really struggled to make a good chicken curry in the last 8 years from being in Canada. I just can't find my vibe. I was better at making it in Ireland. Okay, so it's not too loud, Carla, because I have the microphone up a little bit higher. Okay, so there's a lot of new members in the group. That's why I wanted to do another Q&A. So hi to everyone. The group is growing really fast, so I'm very happy about that. So before I go on, I'm going to introduce myself to people who don't know me. My name is Shemaine Linney. I am a nutritional therapist, certified iridologist, personal trainer, Pilates instructor, and biohacker. And yes, I am certified in nutritional therapy as well. I've been practicing since 2008. I launched my business in Canada in 2016, so I immigrated here in 2014, and I work with a lot of people, and I try to help people as much as I can, and I'll always try to answer as many questions as I can, regardless if you're a client or just a follower. I always answer people. Most people know that I'll always answer. So, hi, Annie. So we have a couple of questions tonight. I like doing these videos because people can comment questions and you really do learn a lot on these videos. So I wrote down a few questions and I'm going to go through them. Chelsea, I'll go through your one as well. So people actually do send me a lot of questions. So I try to get to them as best that I can. If anyone has any more questions, do drop them down below as we go on and I will get to them. So one of the questions was, there's many questions. One of the questions was, does sugar or insulin cause insulin or inflammation? That was one of the questions. And the answer there is yes. So sugar in excess is very inflammatory, but sugar in low amounts generally doesn't cause people issues. But sugar, when it's in large amounts, it will cause inflammation. What most people think that sugar is the bad guy, it's the #1 guy we should avoid. But I've always said, Chelsea, Annie, you'll know this, I really believe that polyunsaturated fatty acids, trans fats, toxic oils, hydrogenated fats, whatever you want to call them, I just, for layman's terms and to help people really understand, I just say your toxic fats and oils. So those are going to be the most inflammatory food that you can consume. And I see this in clients post refeed day. If they've had some greasy foods or exposure to any sort of hydrogenated fats or grease, they will experience tenderness across their body, aches and pains. They will have a fake hunger. So they'll feel hungry, but they're not hungry, because these fats are very, very inflammatory and they directly influence insulin. So you'll get this fake hunger, you'll get irritability. But one of the key signs of having too much grease or toxic fats is going to be tenderness on your body. Like your body will feel sore, your breasts will feel sore, your thighs will feel sore, you'll have these aches and pains. And then if you're looking at your bowel movement, it's going to come out very loose and stringy and mushy, as gross as that sounds. But that's going to show you that that inflammation is then transcended into your gut, into your intestines, into your colon. So and trans fats are a big one, but sugar in excess can definitely cause inflammation, because excess sugar is going to, and this is where, okay, if you want to leave now, leave. If you don't want to hear the science or where it gets complicated, leave. I know some of you like it, but I'll try to explain it really easy. Within your cell, so your cell looks like a circle. Within that cell, you have, so the cell membrane is made up of fat, so a good fat, hopefully. And inside the cell, you have water, hopefully clean water. And then inside all that water, you've got like all your organelles, and you've got lots and lots of mitochondria. Mitochondria make your energy. They make your metabolism, basically. If you mess with your mitochondria, you're not going to create energy. But when you overconsume a lot of sugar, you cause a build-up of what's called ceramide. So ceramide is a fat that we already have in our body, and it's an essential fat, but when we have too much sugar, we get a buildup of ceramide within the cell. And what ceramide does is it tears the cell apart. It literally like just pulls it apart, shreds it to pieces. So now all the mitochondria get shredded as well. And you can't then obviously produce energy. And then you get a lot of inflammation as a byproduct, because now you have a damaged toxic cell, and that's leaking out ceramide into the surrounding area. So this happens. People, when they think of sugar, most people don't have obviously a deep understanding. They're thinking just like sugar cravings, lethargy, maybe eventually obesity or fatty liver or something like that. But on a cellular level, sugar can just tear the cells apart. And if you tear a cell apart, it's not going to produce energy. And if you're not producing energy, you're going to be exhausted. You're going to be very irritable. And then, of course, you're going to have a lot of inflammation and being in pain. Sugar also oxidizes the body, because sugar produces, Alicia, you'll know this, sugar produces AGEs, which is glycated end products. So these are very inflammatory oxidative molecules that basically, they rust your body. If you think of a gate rusting over time from being exposed to harsh weather and aging, that's what these molecules do. So consuming a lot of sugar will age you faster, because you have these glycated end products. So glycated, glycogen, sugars, glycogen, you have these end products that will go around your body, and they just degrade everything. And that's part of the inflammatory process. There's a name for it. It's called inflammaging. I did a whole podcast episode on it maybe a year ago or something. Most people have not heard of the term inflammaging. They'll have heard of inflammation, but not inflammaging. So check out that podcast. I think it's like 10 minutes long. You might be interested to hear it. It really explains how the whole aging process does happen in the body. It's not just what we think of in the tissues or the skin, like it's all over the place. So those are the ways that sugar can influence the inflammation. And then you have the negative feedback loops. In sugar is going to influence sleep quality. If you don't sleep properly, you're going to have a lot of inflammation. You'll age faster. So definitely sugar in low amounts at the correct time of the day, done in the correct way, I don't see a problem there. There are certain sugars that are going to be more inflammatory than others, like brown rice is going to be really inflammatory. Legumes are generally really inflammatory. Most people are going to be fine on like sweet potato. Like there are different ones, but regardless, in excess, it is going to be a problem for sure. So Chelsea, let's see what your question was. Great sound, great sound. Hello. Okay. There was another question about bowel movements. So someone had mentioned that they're only having a bowel movement once a week. And could I help kind of give some recommendations and some feedback on that? And this question really interested me because it is a concern for several of my clients, not having regular bowel movements, and it really is a big concern. And I think when people look at bowel movements and constipation, because this would be constipation is considered not having a bowel movements every 3 days, basically. So if you haven't had a bowel movement for 3 days, you are constipated. And most people, when they think of constipation, they're generally just thinking of being backed up, being bunged up, maybe having some aches and pains and feeling really full, but they're not thinking of the other effects that this will have on the body. So I want to touch on that first. Ideally, we want to be having a bowel movement once a day. I want my clients to have a bowel movement once a day. Bowel movements are a huge part of our detoxification process. Now, I've spoke about this before. So there's several pathways that we detoxify. So we've got our bowel movements, we've got urination, we've got our breath, we've got perspiration as well, so sweating. We've got tears to an extent, and only a tiny extent, because I would hope we're not crying every day. And then for a woman, and this is very important for people to take home, for a woman, having a bleed, having menstruation, having your period every month, that really is a woman's main detoxification pathway for hormones. Like having a bleed is so important. I know people are not going to like to hear this, but I do have to stress it. It's really important because I'm well aware that people try to suppress their bleed with birth control, but having a bleed is very important. A hysterectomy is a different story. I know someone's going to comment on that, but those are our main detoxification pathways. So when we look at not having a bowel movement, and you're not having one for a week, and I actually have a client and she went, this is going to sound crazy, I believe it was 8 weeks without a bowel movement. I was like, holy cow, how did they not take you into hospital? Like, you must feel terrible. Like, this sounds terrible, but like, how is it not coming out your mouth? Like 8 weeks of not going to the bathroom, that would be horrific. But apart from how that would feel, my concern there is, okay, well, if you have all of this waste just backing up in your colon and your intestine, that waste is now putrefying, it's fermenting, and it's also recirculating into your bloodstream. So you're going to end up with this huge toxic overload in your body, because if you're only having a bowel movement once a week, that means that for the rest of that week, all of that waste is putrefying and it is recirculating hormones and toxins back into your bloodstream. And it does that through a process called deglucuronidation, done by bacteria in our intestines. This is obviously a big problem. If you start to recirculate toxins and hormones and chemicals into your bloodstream, and this is an ongoing thing, and you're not keeping up with it by detoxifying enough, now we have a big problem. Now I'm concerned about toxic overload in the body. A few signs that you will have toxic overload in your body is going to, first, I would say, is going to be cognitive impairment or poor cognitive performance. You'll experience aches and pains in your joints, especially around your shoulders at night. I've noticed that is a common trend. Skin issues, any sort of like rash or even dermatitis to an extent can be toxic overload, because if you think of it, your body's overloaded with toxins. It's going to try push, which is another pathway. I missed it. Skin. Your body's going to try push toxins out of your skin. That's why when people start like a new health journey or protocol, they might break out because their body's trying to push the toxins out through their skin, and then it usually clears up after a few days. But toxic overload is a big concern. I believe there's a post in here with a whole list of symptoms you can look for toxic overload. Sleep interference is a big one, and cognitive performance for sure. And I would go as far to say mental health issues, anxiety, weepiness, mood swings, they can be part of toxic overload as well. So that's the first concern. And then I'm also thinking, well, and I always do this when I think of bad news, if you have toxic overload for a long period of time, apart from these symptoms and signs, what damage is it causing that we're not seeing? What is the potential outcome of a health diagnosis in the future for this, that, or the other? I don't like to name specific ones because I don't like to jinx anyone or manifest anything, but that's how I'm thinking, like, damn, if we don't get this sorted, like, how is this going to affect him or her 10, 20 years down the line? Like, if this is a consistent thing, this is a problem. So that's the first thing. So back to, I want you having a bowel movement daily. There's a couple of things that we'll look at when there's constipation. The first one is going to be hydration, and this is always really contrary to what people think. People think that if you're constipated, you should have more fiber. So, hi, Ali. If you're constipated and you start adding in more fiber, what do you think is going to happen? That fiber is just going to pile up on top of the bowel or the waste that's already there. Like, fiber is dry. Fiber is just going to add to that load. You need to move the load out of your body. Constipation for most people is dehydration. Most people underdrink fluids. And I always say fluids to my clients because people can get obsessed with just water. No, it has to be fluids. There has to be a balance there. So fluids is the first thing we look at. And then if that doesn't work, then I'm looking at inflammation in the bowels. Like, how am I going to get some sort of binder in there that's also going to hydrate and reduce the inflammation and move things along? Because as gross as this sounds, if you have a lot of inflammation in your bowels and you're trying to push waste through that tube, like, ideally your colon and large intestines should be about the size of your arm, which sounds crazy when you look at your arm. But if you've got a lot of inflammation there, that can swell and be become as tight as like the size of a straw. And that's why you can get constipated, because the waste can't fit through that tiny tunnel because of that inflammation. So I really see flaxseed is very helpful there. I'm always careful with how I recommend flaxseed, but flaxseed is good for helping with constipation and reducing the inflammation in the bowels. Then I'll look at a few other things, but I want to give you tips. Like, obviously there gets to a stage where you're going to have to use some sort of laxative or diuretic, like Senecot, or what's the other one, Dulcolax. So those are where people are like desperate, and you can get some prescription ones as well. I would like people to go the more natural route, but I'm also apprehensive about saying that, because regardless if you go natural or pharmaceutical, they generally still will have some of the same outcomes. I'll get into that in a minute. So natural would be what people would think of with maybe some sort of smooth move tea, or a fennel tea, or a senna leaf tea. But also we could be looking at vitamin C, high dose vitamin C. So, and when I say high dose, I'm looking at 8 to 10,000 milligrams of vitamin C, which is a lot. That will pull water into the bowels and then release the bowels, so you'll get a bowel movement. Vitamin C is water soluble, so that's how it'll pull. When you have too much, it'll pull the water in. And then high dose magnesium will also not pull water into the bowels, but magnesium, as most people know, is a muscle relaxant. So if you do a high enough dose of magnesium, and we generally will do magnesium citrate if we're trying to hit bowel tolerance and get someone to have a bowel movement. And for some people, that can be huge. I've seen some people go up to like 3 grams of magnesium. So that's 3,000 milligrams of magnesium in order to get the bowels moving, because it's a relaxant that if there is any sort of inflammation, or inflammation caused by like adrenaline or cortisol, so our stress hormones, they can very much be connected to constipation. The magnesium can be helpful there, but for some people it needs to be like a massive dose, which for me, if I already get a lot of magnesium in my diet and through my mineral water is a great source of magnesium, which I talk a lot, so then I get thirsty, so then I have to sip on it, which is a good and a bad thing. Slightly rude, but I'm also getting my minerals. So for me though, if I was to take, say, so sometimes I might take 300 milligrams of magnesium citramate before bed if I've had a very stressful day and I just want to push down the inflammation, but I already get a lot of magnesium in my diet, so then the next morning my stool will be a bit looser. So like a small dose of magnesium hits my bowel tolerance. But for some people, they're not doing 300 milligrams, they're doing 3,000 milligrams. And some people even more. Like, some people really have issues with constipation, and I get it. So these are the tools we would use to help you have a bowel movement daily, while addressing like what's going on, why is this happening, can we push down inflammation. It might take a while, but we're working on other stuff. But I still want to encourage you to have a bowel movement every day for that detoxification aspect of things and the potential damaging effects of having waste sitting in your bowels for too long. But I have to throw this in. This is what I was alluding to for potential side effects in regards to whether or not you do a pharmaceutical like Dulcolax, or if you do high dose of magnesium. People don't consider this. This is really important. Whatever you're doing to flush your bowels, you absolutely have to replenish lost minerals and fluids. People don't. People will flush their bowels and then the next day they'll just drink their normal amount of water. And then we start to see increased cravings and issues staying on track and adrenal issues. Because if you're flushing your bowels regularly, not only are you losing a lot of water, you're also losing a lot of minerals. And this is a problem. So when I say replenish, like there's one client I think of, and we've had to in the past do this daily flushing her bowels with a lot of magnesium, vitamin C to make sure she has a bowel movement every morning. And then she knew that she had to drink an extra one of these. So this is 750 mils. She had to drink an extra bottle of mineral water to replenish lost minerals and water after doing that. Like, you have to be cognizant of that. You don't have to drink mineral water, but salt and water at the very least. You need to do that or you're asking for trouble. And this is a big thing. Even when people are fasting, they'll lose a lot of water and minerals, and then they'll struggle to get back on track because they'll have increased cravings and their adrenals are struggling because they lost so many minerals. You need to be cognizant of this. And I'm also cognizant that not everyone would know this. That's why I'm saying it here, but I'll always tell people. Not everyone would recognize this, but some people would. Of course, there's a lot of very smart people out there. So those are some tools we can use. Another one you can do, you could do aloe vera leaf. So the leaf, Alicia, you probably know this, the actual leaf of the aloe vera plant, you could consume some of that. That is a natural diuretic as well. You still need to rehydrate after. So there are some stuff doing, but we really do want you having a bowel movement at least once a day. Like, that's what I would consider normal. The same way, I'm just going to throw this in here, the same way I would say getting up to pee once a night, that's perfectly normal. If you fall into the bathroom like a zombie, half asleep, you urinate and you straight back to bed and you have no issues falling back to sleep, I have no issue with that. Anything more than once, I would be looking at a potential concern there, maybe around cortisol levels and stress. But once a night is normal, and then once a day for a bowel movement is normal. Alicia, have you tried the aloe leaf for bowel movements? Annie, going to donate blood is important after menopause to help with detoxification too, I'd imagine. That really depends, Annie. So I'm just going to read that again in case people didn't hear it. Going to donate blood is important after menopause to help with detoxification too, I imagine. That really depends on the individual, Annie. For you, because you're exercising, because your nutrition is good and you have like a good kind of overall plan, you could donate blood for sure, because you're stimulating stem cells as it is. You are stimulating stem cells. So that means when you stimulate stem cell regeneration through exercise signaling factors, through fasting, through certain nutritional practices, consuming chlorophyll, different things, you will then be producing more red blood cells. So you could donate blood, but there's also the alternative that you would be utilizing that blood properly because your lifestyle is active, because you're doing a lot of healing and regeneration. You would look at the hormone panel for that. Generally, if someone's following a good kind of overall health template, health lifestyle, the hormones should be what we would consider normal in menopause. But there's no harm in donating. But if someone has a poor nutritional template and poor lifestyle practices, and they are consuming a lot of alcohol, which is very estrogenic, even our healthy red wine can contribute to our estrogen load, and then their nutrition's not good and they're not sleeping well and they're not exercising and they're not detoxifying properly, then I would consider donating blood. That would be like a crutch to help you get those toxins and hormones out of the body. But then I'd feel terrible giving a stranger that blood as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. That would be something you'd consider on an individual basis for sure, Annie. I hope that answered the question. But definitely a good question. There's a couple of my clients that do donate blood for multiple reasons. If you can do it, I don't think it's a concern, but don't do what people do and have a donut straight after they donate blood. That's crazy. Let me see what else. There was another question. If anyone has any more questions, pop them below. Facebook's not being cooperative with me this evening. Where are the comments? Okay, I found them. Does sugar cause inflammation? Oh, okay. This is another good one. How valuable is it to go gluten-free? Would you advise it for everyone? This is a hot topic, isn't it? A lot of people talk about going gluten-free and want to go gluten-free, and they say they're gluten-free. But I think that this is a topic that needs to be considered in context. So if you are celiac or have non-celiac, definitely go gluten-free. Some people that have FODMAP issues, so fructo, oligo, maltosaccharides, they basically most of them can tolerate a small amount of gluten, which is a good thing in my opinion, but too much then is a bad thing. So people that do have some sort of IBD or IBS, but they're not celiac or not non-celiac, I've noticed they can tolerate a little bit of gluten. So gluten is a protein, it's an amino acid. We generally can't, most of us can't digest it very well. And I mean that, most of us can't. So even regardless of who my client is, if they have celiac or not, I'm generally keeping their gluten low in any way. And then if they are celiac or non-celiac, then there's no gluten there either. I've noticed, and there's a study, let me see, can I pull it up, that my clients with non-celiac, they can't even tolerate most other grains. Let me see the study. So I do think there is a benefit for a lot of people to go low gluten, but not completely gluten-free, because we have to understand the idea of hormesis, of having a tiny bit of poison can be good for us. It'll keep our immune system on its toes, because if you don't have celiac or non-celiac and you never have gluten at all, there's always going to be a risk of cross-contamination or exposure somewhere. There's always going, you cannot eliminate that risk 100%. So then if you did get some exposure, you're going to be messed up. It's going to be very painful. It's not going to be comfortable. You're going to have an immune response to it, and your body is going to launch a big response that could potentially flip a switch on becoming or developing an autoimmune issue. So if you can have a little bit of gluten once in a while, I think that's a really good idea, because without gluten, basically these proteins have barcodes on them. Just to explain, like give you an analogy, if you think of these proteins on these foods, they have barcodes on them, and when you consume them, then your immune system will scan them and be like, yep, I recognize that. But if you never have one of these proteins and your immune system scans the barcode and it's like, alert, alert, stranger danger, it doesn't recognize the barcode, now it launches a big immune response, and then you get maybe a big breakout of hives, rash, IBD, diarrhea, cramp, spasm, nausea. Like, it can get bad, but that also can flip the switch on having an autoimmune issue. So I do think it's wise to have some sort of gluten once in a while, just to give your body that exposure. And I really do see most people can tolerate a small amount of gluten, except, like I said, those with celiac or non-celiac. I can't find that study, but What I've noticed is people with non-celiac, they can't tolerate any grains. Stone ground corn seems to be okay in like small servings, but otherwise any grains seem to cause severe issues. But another thing here is going gluten-free. Gluten is very inflammatory in the body, like very inflammatory. Inflammation is going to put a stop on fat loss. So a lot of the time when people go gluten-free, like 95% gluten-free, apart from that little bit of gluten they might have on refeed day or once in a while with a sandwich or a wrap or something. When people do go mostly gluten-free, I see a big reduction in inflammation, but then the body just starts letting go of weight. I've seen people lose just a lot of weight when they go gluten-free, mostly gluten-free. I want to be careful to say that. So there is a lot to be considered there. And then gluten can play, because of that inflammatory process and the immune response, you can get a lot of brain fog as well there. So I do think it's a good idea for most people to go mostly gluten-free, but if you don't have celiacs or non-celiacs, you should be implementing some gluten into your diet once in a while, just to make sure that that keeps your body on its toes and get that kind of hormesis response there too. Next question. Chelsea, this is your question. If you fell off the bandwagon, what's a good way to get back on to help your system adjust properly? I'm doing the 2-day core plan this week to help. So this is a good question, because how some people perceive jumping back on the bandwagon might be different from person to person. So firstly, the 2-day core plan, most people in here won't know what that is unless you're my client. That's a part of my master's guide. So it's a really different eating protocol for 2 days. But when most people fall off the bandwagon or fall off their plan or fall off track, I hate to say fall off track, but I really can't find a better term to describe it. Even saying fall off plan just doesn't quite fit it. So when people fall off track, they're really, the first line of thinking generally is, I need to do a reset to get myself back on track. Well, you do, but how do we do that reset? So a lot of people, because fasting is a hot topic nowadays, a lot of people will think, well, I'm fasting, I'll just fast. I've always said, always to all my clients, we don't use fasting for fat loss. I've always said that to everyone. We use fasting for healing and regeneration. So if you're thinking, well, I'll fast just to let my body bring down the inflammation and detoxify, if that's really your line of thinking, then okay, but just be sure that you're not fasting to try compensate for calories or starve yourself for that reset. I hope that makes sense how I'm explaining it. You just got to be careful with how you're thinking about using a fast. But for some people that can be great. Some people, they fall off track because they got some bad news or they went on vacation or something, and a fast may be great for them, but not for everyone. If you have poor tendencies towards food and a poor relationship towards food, a fast may not be the best idea to get you back on track. You should be working with a professional at that stage, and anyway, well, hopefully you are. But for some people will fall off track because they're exhausted and they're stressed and they're tired and they're just worn out. And I don't mean like, I'm going to be tired after this. It's been a long day, but I'm just naturally tired. I'm not like overly stressed or exhausted. I'm just naturally tired. But some people are like very tired. They're burnt out. They're just burning the candle at both ends. Go, go, go. They're staying up late. They're getting up early to work out. They're not eating properly. Their adrenals are shot. At that stage, if that person is trying to get back on track, then we have to be careful. Then I'm looking at, okay, let's just get you back to eating your correct square meals a day. Most of the time it's like, okay, let's just get you back to eating 3 meals a day. If there is adrenal exhaustion there, and I'm sure there is, I might throw in an extra snack, or I might make the meals bigger, but we do have to be careful on this. For other people, that maybe they were on vacation and we know they've had a lot of alcohol and a good time. Maybe I'm going to tell them to do the 3-day cleanse. It really is determined from person to person. I can't say to everyone, just do this. If someone was to do a 3-day cleanse, then I have to be careful when they come off the cleanse the following day, their nutrition has to be correct, because if they come off the cleanse, and the cleanse is the idea, my cleanse I'm talking about, the whole idea behind that is tilting your bacteria in the correct direction. If you come in the next day on the 4th day and you just start eating a load of junk food and alcohol, now you're going to mess things up even more, because you're going to tilt the bacteria in the wrong direction. But because the gut and the gut lining is so sensitive from the cleanse, you're going to physically damage your gut lining. So we have to be careful there. But to get back on track, for most people, I would say just get back on track. Just do it. Like, it doesn't have to be anything extreme. Set yourself a plan. If you find you're somewhat burning low or almost at burnout, then just like write down some low-hanging fruit. What can I do? Okay, I'm exhausted. I'm just going to focus on my 3 meals a day and getting to bed at a good time. I'm not even worried about exercise or walking or anything like that. I'm just focused on getting myself slowly back on track. So that consistency. So it is, I would say this to everyone, it is just do it. Just get back on track. This is one of the traits or habits of successful people. I would consider myself successful. I've kept my weight off for a long time. We do fall off track. I say this to my clients all the time. I have bad days just like everyone. I have evenings where I'm like, F it, today was a shitty day. I'm gonna have some wine and chips. It's not very often, but it does happen. But the traits or the habits of successful people is we might fall off track. We might have a bad meal, or as people call it, a cheat. I don't like to say cheats. Make a poor food choice. We do it, we enjoy it, we get over it, and we get straight back on track. That is one of the traits of successful people. We don't let it ripple into the whole week. Okay, I might have had a bad meal because I got caught off guard this morning and I ended up having to get lunch out, which you can still make good choices, but this is just an example. And then maybe, because you know what we do as humans, as women, we'll say, sure, lunch was bad, I might as well just have whatever for dinner. And sure, today's an off day, I'll just have a glass of wine and some chips. We tend to let things spiral out of control. I'm not immune to that either. But again, the habit is, that'll be it. It'll be that day. I won't let it spiral through my week. That is how successful people do it. They fall off track, but they get back on track ASAP. So that, Chelsea, I hope that answers your question. You know what to do, Chelsea. Because you're a client, the best thing you can do is reach out. If you feel confident in what you're doing, go for it. But if there's any doubt, message me or ask in the group. Alicia, it's my experience that I can tolerate way more gluten when I'm not under stress, like on vacation. I love how you mentioned that, Alicia. That's great. I'm going to just mention that next. But if I'm having a crazy week and eat some gluten, I will be more likely to have some issues. Yes. Have you heard of this kind of thing? Yes, because when we're stressed, not only are we producing excess cortisol and adrenaline. People, we don't just produce cortisol when we're stressed. We produce adrenaline, but we also produce other inflammatory molecules. We produce IGF, we produce cytokines. These inflammatory molecules, even excess estrogen when we're stressed. These can be really damaging to the body overall. That's why, Alicia, for example, some people, when they get very stressed, they will experience what we call idiopathic anaphylaxis. So they'll just break out in random rashes and hives, and it's from the stress. But most of us know, I think you know, Alicia, that whatever happens on our skin is an expression of what's going on in our gut. So when we're very stressed, back to the whole constipation thing, we get a lot of inflammation in our gut. And that inflammation doesn't just swell it, like I said, going from having intestines and colon the size of your arm down to the size of a straw. It doesn't just do that, because your epithelial layers, the lining of your intestines, it's one cell thick. Think about that. Like, you can't even imagine. Well, you probably could, because you're in the health industry as well. But like, one cell thick. Imagine how tiny that is, how easily damaged that could be. So then if you're under a lot of stress, and your colon, your large intestine, even your small intestine are under a lot of stress, then that one cell layer lining is way more susceptible to being damaged. So it's easier for you to get those, they're called tight cell junctions. You'll probably have heard of this, Alicia, where between all these cells you have little junctions, and when you get exposure to a lot of inflammatory molecules and stress, they start to cause holes, and then from those holes you get leaky gut. The molecules then are able to get through the intestines into the bloodstream. You get autoimmune issues. So there's that. But also, when we're very stressed, we downregulate production of our stomach acid, enzymes, digestive juices. We pull blood away from the digestive system because it's survival mode. It's ride or die at that stage because you're so stressed. So now when you do have gluten, you've even less enzymes and acids to try to even break that down. So like, everything's playing against you. And because you've pulled the blood away from your digestive system, everything's slower. It takes even longer to digest. And this is why people who experience chronic stress and have very stressful jobs, they end up getting a lot of gastric issues, a lot of bloating, a lot of belching, a lot of farting, a lot of gas, because everything is slowed down. They're not breaking stuff down properly. I hope that makes sense, Alicia. Hi, Christy. Ali, I think you have access to the cleanse. Ali, you should, in your master's guide, go into the library where we have like all of the guides. You have access to all the guides. Pretty sure the cleanse is there. Okay, does anyone have any more questions? Let me just take a look to see who asked. There is one other one that someone asked me earlier. It was Jackie. I think this will interest people. She sent me these pictures, so I'm going to try upload them into the comments. This will be interesting. Unless someone else has a more interesting question. Okay, I'm going to try upload this. This is I don't know if it's a popular like health bar or what. I've never seen it before. I'm going to try upload it into the comments. If I can't, I'll do it after. But Jackie sent me this earlier asking my opinion on. Doesn't look like it's going to post. Basically, so I'll add the pictures after I'm finished. Or if someone who's watching wants me to send them the pictures on Messenger, and then you can post them here in the comments while I'm talking, then that will help people. But basically, this bar is called, I think it says Zo Raw dark chocolate bar with protein. So on the front it says 12 grams of protein, 0 grams of sugar. This is funny. It says cacao. Alicia, you'll find this entertaining. It says cacao on the front of the wrapper. So then when I look at the back, I always look at the nutrition or the ingredients first. of this. Again, if anyone can share these pictures, let me know and I will send them to you. So I'm looking at the ingredients. I'll always look at the ingredients before the nutrition label. The ingredients are our first protocol whenever we're reading labels. So it says, so remember on the front it says cacao. So cacao is good. Cacao is what we want. It's like one of the top superfoods. It's very nutritious. But when you look at the ingredients, it says cocoa. Cocoa and cacao are not the same. Cocoa is processed cacao, which is generally being heated and Dutched, so it's lost all of its nutritional value, and it's basically just a chocolate flavor at that stage. So it says cocoa. And you have to be sure this wouldn't have been a mistake. They have huge processes that they go through. This would be, in my opinion, somewhat misleading. From what it says on the front, it says cacao, but on the back in the ingredients, it says cocoa, then it says whey protein isolate. So, okay, cocoa is just chocolate flavor. Whey protein isolate, I'm okay with that. I like protein isolate. It's hypoallergenic. Then we have erythritol, which is sugar alcohol. A lot of people have issues with erythritol. Then we have inulin, which is an oligosaccharide. So inulin is a sugar in a sense. It does cause an insulin response. For sure, it definitely does. So we think of inulin as a type of sugar, even though in the health industry, in the health food industry, they will try to pass it off as a healthy sugar, and it's pretty much no sugar. That's not true. Then we have sunflower lecithin, that's just a binder. Stevia leaf extract, okay, and then natural flavors, well, that could be anything, but I'm not too concerned about the natural flavors. I'm not too concerned about stevia, but I did say, Jackie, is this bar sweet? And she's like, yeah, it's really sweet. That's why she's been having it on her refeed day, because she is smart in that sense. Alicia, I'm just going to send you the pictures on Messenger, and then if you could post them in the comments, that would be awesome. And then I'm going to move on to the nutrition label, so you guys can all see this product, because one, you'll know to avoid it, but two, there's lots and lots of these so-called health food bars that are like this, but they're not really health food bars. So I sent them to you on Messenger, Alicia, if you wouldn't mind sharing the picture, if you're not eating your dinner. So, okay, so Jackie's question was, well, can I have these at any time of the day during the week? When can I have them? She's only been having them on refeed day because from the knowledge she has, Jackie's been a client of mine for over a year now. So she's kind of like, can make these estimated decisions, educated decisions, not even estimated. So at that stage, I've looked at the nutrition and the ingredients, and now I look at the nutrition facts. That helps me decide, well, how is this? So I'm already saying no because she told me it tasted sweet. Anything that tastes sweet is going to cause an insulin response. One of the biggest problems in society is blood sugars and insulin resistance. So, I mean, we have to be cognizant of that, even if it's just stevia, and stevia is not necessarily bad, there is some benefits. But if something tastes sweet, it is going to cause an insulin response, and that is going to contribute to insulin resistance and blood sugar issues and all the associated problems with that. I hate to sound like a negative Nancy, but that's how it works. People think, no, like it's a zero sugar maltitol or stevia or something like that. It's not going to affect blood sugars. It's not going to cause diabetes. No, you're wrong. It will. And this false information is why society is still so sick. Okay, rant over. On to the nutrition facts. So I'm like, okay, I know the ingredients now. Protein's 12, that's great. The fat is 21 grams per bar. Okay, now I'm looking at the carbohydrates. The carbohydrates are 16 grams. You could argue with me over the fiber, except I already know that this bar is sweet and is going to cause an insulin response. And if you've listened to my podcast on the importance of not combining fat and carbs together, you'll know the problem that is here, especially with fats of 21 grams. So even if you tried to argue with me that maybe the protein and the fiber would slow down the sugar metabolism, we still have a problem. You're still going to get an insulin response, and the fat is still quite high, and the carbohydrates are still substantial at 16 grams. Erythritol is a sugar alcohol. A lot of people can't digest erythritol and they will get gastric issues. So this bar for me, I would say no. This bar doesn't fall into the category of a fat. It doesn't fall into the category of a carbohydrate. It would be problematic in my opinion. So this type of bar would be a refeed day bar. And honestly, this is not the type of bar that I'd be having on refeed day, because if I'm having refeed day, I'm not going to have a health bar on refeed day or a so-called health bar on refeed day. I'm probably going to have Purdy's or something I'm going to enjoy. So that's a valuable lesson for people to understand. That's okay, Alicia, I'll post the pictures now once we're done. That is a valuable lesson, because there's so many health bars and health foods out there that like, no, I'm not going to say that's a good idea. I'm not going to approve my clients or students. I want my job, people pay me to make them healthy and help them be successful with their health and body journeys. I'm not going to fake say, yes, because it looks like a health food bar, you should eat it. No, I understand better. One analogy I use, it's not even an analogy, it's real life, is I really think these bars and these foods are a big part of the problem nowadays. Alicia, I think you'll agree with me on why people are so unhealthy. 10 years ago, we said people are more unhealthy and overweight than they've ever been. That was 10 years ago. In those 10 years, well, of course, fasting and paleo and keto totally kicked off, and even veganism. And 10 years later, now we're saying society is more unhealthy than it's ever been, ever. How is that possible? Where are we getting misled? Where is the false information that's making us sicker? Like, how can we have all these options of health lifestyles like intermittent fasting and keto and paleo and still be more unhealthy than we've ever been? Like, where's the missing link there? I think a big part of it has to do with the health food industry. People are forever sending me pictures of, is this okay? It was in the health food aisle, or one of my clients calls it the hippie aisle. She's like, is this okay? Is this? But it was in the health food aisle. And I'm like, not everything that's there is honest or even actually healthy. Like, there's so much false, misleading information and marketing in the health food industry. Like, I hate to say this, but if for a lot of companies, it is just about the money. It's not about making people healthy. It's about the profit. Oh, look, keto is all the rage now. Let's all sell a load of keto treats and fat bombs and everything like this. And now people are like, well, keto's not working for me. And now it's giving me more problems than fixed. And it needs to stop. Like, stop. I know people don't like to hear what I have to say, but someone has to say it. Okay, so do you have any thoughts? These are going to be, I think this will be my last question. Do you have any thoughts on taking biologics and the best way to support your immune system with those on board? Do you mean with the biologics on board? I recently started a med called Cosmetics, like Humaria. Since taking the injections, I've been feeling great in so many ways. Now that I have way less inflammation and pain, I'm able to do so much more, including being mindful about my food, movement. Anything in particular come to mind that people using pharmaceuticals like this can do to offset the effects of the drugs? Well, first things, Christy, would be detoxification. Sleep is a big part of detoxification. And then I would be looking at really after detoxification, I'm like, well, if these medications are necessary and you're actually reaping the rewards and feeling the benefits of them, okay, they're going to stay, because there is instances where pharmaceuticals and medications are necessary for people. We do have to consider quality of life as well. I'm not negligent to that. Obviously, pharmaceuticals are not my first go-to, but I also understand, like, you have to have some quality of life. So if the pharmaceuticals are staying, or the medication is staying, and you're getting the benefits of it, we're going to support detoxification, so that any part of the medication that's not being utilized for the body, we don't need it floating around. Let's just get it out. But if there's any damaging side effects of that specific drug, and I'll have to look it up when I get off, I don't like to Google when I'm on these calls, then we're going to look at, okay, well, if it's affecting the microbiome directly, how are we going to support the microbiome and make sure we're keeping things tilted in the correct direction? But if it maybe has an impact on healing in regards to stem cell and anabolism, like producing your stem cells, you're smart, Christy, you'll know this, and regenerating the body, then we further have to stack conditions in our favor. So I'll Google it once we're off this, and then I'll let you know directly. Someone else just posted something. Let me see if I can answer real quick. So Alison, the health food industry is not regulated at all. I hate to say it, like, I sound like such a pessimist, but most of it is about the money. It's unfortunate. And now sleeping right now, minus kid wakes up. Well, that's kids. They definitely were my last line of attack. I understand, Christy. I really do understand. So I'll look again, and then I'll be able to give you a more accurate answer. Those would be my first three, though. Detoxification. Maybe the bacteria might be affected, like the microbiome. That's not just in your gut, that's over your whole body. And then healing and regeneration. You're very welcome, Alison. I'm taking activated charcoal daily. Is that an issue? No, just don't take it around the medication or any supplements. Activated charcoal needs to be taken at least 40 minutes away from taking other stuff. And then activated charcoal is dehydrating as well. So you need to have a tall glass of water with activated charcoal. And when I say tall glass of water, I'm thinking 500 mils, not like a 200 ml glass. It's a 500 ml glass. So that's a tall glass of water. Okay, I hope everyone found that helpful. I'm going to let you go, Christy. Before I get distracted, I'll just look up that medication and I'll comment it below here. If there's any last minute questions, comment below. I'll check them out and answer, and I'll also back this video up on YouTube for you guys to share with anyone that's not in the group. If you want to, you don't have to. Okay, it was nice to speak to everyone. Have a great evening. One new comment. I take it at night when I'm not taking it. Yeah, okay. Love these lives. They really are my favorite. You're my favorite, Jackie. I hope you found the answer helpful. I'll also post the pictures of the bar. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.